What's up YouTube, it's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back again with another video. Now regardless of how big of an NBA fan you are, sometimes it's hard to keep up with the amount of talent in the league. There's 30 teams in the NBA, each team has a roster filling up around 12 to 15 players, so to be completely honest with you, if you miss a few good players here and there, it's understandable because how great the NBA is. And because of that, I feel like it's necessary for me to shed light on some of the great talent that's in the league that just doesn't get the type of notification that they probably should. But before we get into the video real quick, if you haven't seen my 4 most overrated players in the NBA, please go check that out. Also, if you feel like I missed a player on this list, as always, you can of course leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you want to be updated on the great videos that I upload, please subscribe. Also, leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, and let's get right into the video. So here are the 4 most underrated players in the NBA today. Tobias Harris is a 6'9" forward that spent a good handful of his careers in Orlando and Milwaukee, but finds himself in Detroit for the remaining of the season last year and probably moving forward. At 6'9", his flexibility lends him to play both power forward and small forward, which is something that a lot of teams would love to have, but actually Detroit has the luxury of having a player like that on their team. First positive thing about Tobias Harris is that he is young. The numbers that he's put up so far in his NBA career are actually pretty decent, especially compared to other players that are around his age. At 22, he averaged 17 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 2 assists, a block, almost shooting 47% from the field, and also shooting 36% from 3. With numbers like that, he's easily comparable to other young great players in this league, such as Klay Thompson and Kawhi Leonard when they were 22 themselves. Second thing to note is his flexibility. At 6'9", he can play both power forward and small forward, and there are a ton of teams and organizations that would love to have a player like that on their roster. Defensively, Tobias Harris is still quick enough to keep in front of a lot of small forwards, but also strong enough to bang down low with a good handful of power forwards in this NBA. He proved his flexibility and how valuable he was in the playoffs, and even though they did get swept, he actually put up pretty solid numbers within the 4 games they played against the Cleveland Cavaliers. On top of that, he was able to help with rebounding, averaging around 9.5 boards, which is actually more than Drummond got in that series. Now, the reason why you probably don't know about Tobias Harris or how great of a player he is simply because of the system that he plays in. In Orlando, he proven time and time again that he can actually put up pretty solid numbers and be the best player on an organization, but in Detroit, because of the system that they run, he's probably going to have to be the 3rd or 4th option from time to time. In Detroit, they prioritize Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond with the pick and roll, and they use Tobias Harris towards the wings to make sure they can be able to spread the floor. Which again is fine, because I think he thoroughly understands that he may have to sacrifice some numbers for the greater good of the team, especially if he wants to continue to win. And crazy enough, if you look at his numbers between Orlando and Detroit, even though at first glance they are relatively similar, if you look at his field goal percentage and his efficiency, it's a huge difference in how much of a better shooter he became once he landed in Detroit. Shooting nearly 48% from the field, 38% from 3, and crazy enough, a 91% from the free throw line is pretty impressive. So if you ever had the time to look at a Detroit Pistons game, make sure you do take the time out to look at how good Tobias Harris is on the court. Even though I do understand that the offense is really operated around Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, Tobias Harris and his flexibility and what they're able to do because he's on the floor is something that a lot of people need to really notice. Jonas Valanciunas is a 24-year-old Lithuanian big man that plays for the Toronto Raptors, and for whatever reason, even though this team is really good, I think a lot of people get caught up in Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan and don't pay this man his respect. The first thing you need to notice about Jonas, just like Tobias Harris, he is relatively young. At age 24, he's putting up numbers that it takes some players a few years to actually get to. Last year, he put up 13 points, 9 rebounds, a block, almost an assist, shooting almost 57% from the field, and crazy enough, he's actually a pretty good free throw shooter on top of that. Shooting 76% from the free throw line is pretty impressive for a big man, especially nowadays when it's a liability to have some big men out on the court simply because they can't hit their free throws. What makes Jonas even more special is the fact that he's actually really good on the offensive boards. Out of his 9 rebounds, 3 of them were offensive boards, and on top of that, when it came into the playoffs, he took that to another level. In the playoffs, he averaged roughly around 14 points, nearly 11 boards, 1 block, nearly an assist, shooting 56% from the field, and again, a pretty good free throw shooter, shooting 74% from the line. And like I said earlier, he's a really good offensive rebounder, so out of the 10, almost 11 rebounds that he got, 4 of them were offensive boards. Unfortunately, last year, Jonas missed a good handful of games, and that's probably the reason why people don't know about him, but he's actually really good. Also, when you look at what the Toronto Raptors do when Jonas is off the court compared to when he's actually playing on the court, it's a pretty big difference. Offensively, they're just a much better team when he's on the court, and defensively, he's better rim protection than whatever they had last year. Now, the reason why you probably don't know about Jonas Valanciunas is because they don't really play him that many minutes. Now, going back to those numbers that I did show you, even though they are pretty impressive, there needs to be a very, very clear understanding on how good Jonas is. Those numbers of 13 points and 9 rebounds are what he gets within 26 minutes on the floor. All of that was achieved in 26 minutes of play. Crazy enough, if you look at his per 36, his numbers go through the roof, averaging roughly 18 points, nearly 13 rebounds, and almost 2 blocks. And also, before we continue to go on, let's have an understanding that even the playoff numbers that I showed earlier were also him playing only 26 minutes a game. Now, even though I don't believe he's going to average roughly 18 points if they gave him 36 minutes a game, simply because of the way that the style of play is played in Toronto, I do believe that his rebound numbers would immediately go up as well as everything else. To further prove this point, last year he played 12 games where he got 30 or more minutes, and in those games he averaged roughly around 15 points, 10 rebounds, and he had a defensive rating of 100, which is really good. Now, the reason why he doesn't get that many minutes is simply because of the amount of big men that they had in their front court over the course of a few years. Crazy enough, Jonas did similar numbers last year, but because they have big men such as Ed Davis, Amir Johnson, and Bismack Biyombo over the course of 2 or 3 years, it's not that many minutes that can be allocated out to Jonas. Hopefully they come to their senses and give Jonas Valanciunas the amount of minutes that he deserves, because at this point he is severely underrated and continuously goes under the radar. I mean, at this point, Toronto Raptors actually have a player that potentially could put up 15 points and 13 rebounds and roughly 2 blocks. So yeah, I would potentially actually want that on my roster as well. Next, we have Gordon Hayward, a 6'8" small forward that can stretch the floor out pretty well for the Utah Jazz. And if you look at what he's done in the NBA within the short time that he has been in the league, it's pretty impressive. Now, just like the last 2 players, let's talk about the age. Gordon Hayward just turned 26 a few months ago, which means that he probably has at least 5 to 6 more really good years to give to the league, which is a really, really good thing, especially when you talk about a player that a lot of teams need, especially like the LA Clippers or the Atlanta Hawks. Also, when you talk about numbers that he has, last year he averaged nearly 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 43% from the field, 35% from downtown, and 82% from the free throw line. Compare his numbers to some of his peers such as Klay Thompson and DeMar DeRozan, he's actually on par with a lot of all-stars in this league. Which leads me to the next thing I want to say about Gordon Hayward. His numbers are on par with some players such as Klay Thompson and DeMar DeRozan, but crazy enough, he doesn't play with an elite point guard like they do. Klay Thompson has the luxury of playing with Stephen Curry, and DeMar DeRozan has the luxury of playing with Kyle Lowry, but at this point, the best point guard that Gordon Hayward has ever played with was Deron Williams, and that was in his rookie year, and Deron Williams only played for half a season, so even that is a bit of a stretch. So the fact that Gordon Hayward has accomplished what he's accomplished statistically without having an elite point guard, especially in today's league, is pretty impressive. Also, on top of that, you can make a huge argument that Gordon Hayward is the face of the franchise. A player averaging a little under 20 points, along with the fact that he's a great shooter, almost leading that team into the playoffs last year, for sure should have received more recognition than he probably did. Also, another great thing about Gordon Hayward is that he's consistently gotten better throughout the years. Early on in his career, the biggest con against him was that defensively he just wasn't that good. And fast forward to where we're at today, not saying that he's a lockdown defender, but he's obviously gotten way better than what he once was. Gordon Hayward is strong enough to stay in front of a good handful of small forwards in today's NBA.
Durant. Hayward's got the 4 fouls. Durant on a fall away. It's going to be short. Save.
While still quick enough to stay in front of guards while they try to penetrate through the lane.
You're seeing some great basketball right here from the Utah Jazz.
Harden back. Late to shoot, runs it in the lane. Soft touch, no assists. Aaron Brooks works against Hayward on a stop and go. 9 to shoot, spins, little hook shot right.
And on top of that, for somebody who's predominantly known for being a really great shooter, he can actually throw the ball down from time to time. He actually is a pretty good athlete. I think that's something that a lot of people probably don't know about him, regardless if it's because he's white or they just believe that he's a shooter. He's actually a fairly solid athlete.
Marcus Morris stepping right into it.
11 for 17, 30 points in 28 minutes, and look out.
But the biggest reason why you probably don't know about Gordon Hayward is simply because he's on a bad team. Now, Utah Jazz fans may differ from my opinion, but to be completely honest with you, I'm quite disappointed at how that organization has been ran in the course of 4 to 5 years. And crazy enough, they had a good opportunity to build something around Gordon Hayward early on in his career, but they end up blowing it. In 2011, they had the number 3 pick in the NBA draft, and instead of picking a guard such as Kemba Walker, they ended up picking Enes Kanter. Now, Kanter is a solid player, but at that point in time, they already had Al Jefferson, Paul Millsap, and Derek Favors, and like I said before, Kemba Walker was still on the block, and as we also know, Deron Williams had just left earlier that year, so I'm completely confused to why they didn't go for a guard. Hopefully they can put a team around Gordon Hayward sooner than later, and hopefully it's actually this year, because after this year he is a free agent. And regardless if you don't know how good Gordon Hayward is, trust me when I say the Utah Jazz fans and that organization and the teammates, they know what he means to that team, so they will understand how huge of a hit it is if he ends up leaving. And finally we have Paul Millsap. Millsap is a 6'8" power forward that is, in my opinion, the best player that the Atlanta Hawks have had in a very long time. And the Atlanta Hawks are a team that consistently makes the playoffs, so I'm completely confused to why he isn't getting the recognition that he rightfully deserves. Even though he isn't as young as the rest of the players on his list, he has major accomplishments, and for whatever reason, people just don't recognize him at all. First thing first, he led the Hawks in every statistical category besides assists, ended up with 17 points, 9 rebounds, nearly 2 steals and 2 blocks, and also with 3 assists. Not only did he lead the team in almost every major statistical category, but also in the league, he normally finished around top 10 in almost every statistical category. He finished top 10 in offensive rebounds, top 10 in steals, top 5 in blocks, and top 10 in steals per game. Crazy enough, he had the highest defensive win shares at 6, and the 4th best defensive rating. With numbers like that, he of course received recognition such as the All-Star game and of course the 2nd All-Defensive team, but regardless of how many accomplishments he's received over the past year or two, I'm completely confused to why people don't thoroughly understand how good of a player he is. I mean, Paul Millsap should immediately be put in conversations when you talk about some of the best power forwards in his league, and on top of that, he should be put in conversations when you talk about some of the best defensive players in his league. Again, led the league in defensive win shares and finished top 5 in defensive rating. On top of that, you're telling me there's a power forward out there that stands at 6'8", that's not only strong enough to get nearly 2 steals a game, but also 2 blocks a game, and for whatever reason, we don't have any conversations on how good of a player he is. Now, I don't know if it's because he plays for Atlanta and that's not a huge market compared to other places in the NBA, because to be completely honest with you, if he played for the Golden State Warriors and you took Draymond Green off that team and you put Paul Millsap on there, I think he would get a lot more recognition. A player this good should be receiving way more notoriety than he does, and on top of that, should probably be celebrated for how good of a player he is. Because again, even though he doesn't put up some outrageous numbers, the all-around package that is Paul Millsap should immediately put him in conversations in some of the top players in the league. So there you have it, people. Those are my 4 most underrated players of the NBA today. If you feel like I missed anybody, which I obviously did, because there's so much great talent that goes unnoticed in the NBA today that it's kind of hard to make a list just out of 4 players, but I tried my best. So if you feel like I missed somebody, please put the comment in the comment section below. Also, I will have a poll out in the description, so also click on that so you can, have more output. Also, please leave a comment, because I don't know if people don't know, but I really read almost every comment in the comment section, and if you go back and you look at my last 2 videos, you will clearly see me replying to a lot of people, a good handful of people. So the comment section is always open for discussion, so please leave your comment in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video and you liked what you saw, please leave a thumbs up and share the video. Also, if you want to be updated on the videos that I upload, always subscribe. Matter of fact, make another account and subscribe twice, just so you can be doubled updated on what I upload. So you probably need to do that as well. And always follow me on Twitter to be updated even further on the videos that I upload, and also keep up with me on Twitter. Also, we're doing a Discord chat. I don't necessarily know if people know what that is, but if you want to be part of the Discord chat, please check us out in the Discord chat. That will also be in the description below. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.